I am Norma, and I am 68 years old. For the past 3 years, I believed sharing my credit card with my son and daughter-in-law was just helping family. It started with groceries, then became online shopping sprees, and finally, a charge for a luxury resort. The guilt in my son's eyes when I asked about it was the final straw. So this morning, I called the bank and cancelled the card. Right now, the house is quiet. But I am sitting at my kitchen table, a manila folder in front of me, waiting for the storm I know is coming. Before I tell you what happened when that storm hit, I would love to know where you are listening from today. Are you in your own kitchen, maybe with a cup of tea, like I have? If stories about family, quiet strength, and finding your voice later in life resonate with you, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means I can keep sharing these truths. My life, for the most part, is a quiet one. I have lived in this same house in a suburb outside of Cleveland for 45 years. My husband Frank and I raised our son David here. The mortgage was paid off 10 years ago, a fact Frank was so proud of before he passed. I have been a widow for 7 years now. Those first few years were a haze of grief, and I think that is where this whole mess truly began. I was lonely. The house was so silent. So when my son David, who is 42 now, and his wife Chloe, who is 38, started coming around more, it felt like a lifeline. David is a project manager for a construction firm. Chloe introduced herself as a social media curator when they first started dating. As far as I can tell, that means she takes pictures of her iced coffee and her outfits for a few hundred followers. She has not held a traditional job in the 5 years they have been married. The card sharing started during what David called a temporary cash flow problem. He had left one job and was starting another, and there was a gap in paychecks. He was embarrassed to ask, but I offered. I said, "Here, use my card for the groceries, for the gas, just until you get on your feet." He was so grateful. He hugged me and said, "Thanks, Mom. We will pay you back every penny." That was 2 years ago. They never paid back a single penny, and the card never went back into my wallet. At first, it felt good, needed. They would come for Sunday dinners, and Chloe would help me with my tablet, showing me how to video call my sister Eleanor in Florida. David would check the gutters or change a light bulb. We felt like a team. The first real red flag was so small, I brushed it away. I was looking at the paper statement 6 months ago. I still get paper statements. I saw a charge for $180 to a place called the Gilded Curl. I knew it was a fancy salon downtown. When I mentioned it to Chloe, her eyes welled up with tears. Right there at the dinner table. She said it was for a haircut and color before a big job interview, and she was just so stressed about their finances and wanting to make a good impression. She said she felt awful for using the card. I ended up patting her hand and telling her not to worry, that looking your best was important. I comforted her. I pushed down that little knot of discomfort in my stomach. My own inner voice the one that sounded like my frank, no-nonsense sister. Eleanor was whispering, but she does not have a job to interview for. I silenced it. I told myself that was what family was for. To be soft when the world was hard. To help. I was so afraid of rocking the boat, of being seen as a difficult old woman, of being left alone again in this quiet house. The helping did not feel like helping for much longer. The charges on my statement began to tell a different story. A story of a life I was not living. There were monthly charges for something called Blissful Bite, which turned out to be a subscription for artisan chocolates. There were multiple charges from a website selling what Chloe called elevated loungewear. Then came the organic farm to table meal kit deliveries every week to their address. I sat at this very table one evening with that statement, my reading glasses perched on my nose, and I felt a hot wave of shame. Not their shame, mine, for being so naive. I tried to bring it up carefully the next time David was over alone. Honey, I said these charges are adding up. I am on a fixed budget, you know. He would not meet my eyes. He just waved his hand and said, Mom, do not worry about it. We are good for it. We will square up with you soon. It was a script. He had said the same thing the time before. The words were empty. Then 3 months ago, I had my annual physical. Dr. Evans told me I needed a dental implant for a molar in the back. He said it was important for my overall health that chewing properly mattered. My dental insurance would only cover half. The out-of-pocket cost was going to be $2,000. That same afternoon, I opened my bank account online and saw a cluster of charges from Chloe, totaling over $800 for that month alone. A cold realization settled in my bones. The money for my tooth, for my health, was being spent on her handbags and fancy teas. I decided to set a boundary. It was time. I invited them for a pot roast dinner, a meal David always loved. Over dessert, I took a deep breath. I said, kids, I need to talk to you about the credit card. My own expenses are coming up, some medical things, and I think I need to start winding down the shared use. The silence was instant and heavy. David put his fork down. He stared at his plate. Chloe's smile did not waver, but it froze on her face. Then she launched into action. She got up, came around the table, and put her arms around my shoulders from behind. "Oh, Norma," she said, her voice sweet as syrup. "You are the most generous person I know. We are so lucky to have you. Do not you worry about a thing. We are going to be just fine. David, tell your mom we are fine." David mumbled, "We are fine, Mom." But he would not look at me. The guilt was a physical weight on my chest. They left soon after the pot roast unfinished. I felt sick. I had tried and I had failed. The resort charge was the last straw. It was a $500 non-refundable booking fee for a place called the Vineyard Retreat in Napa Valley. It appeared on a Tuesday. I called David at work. My voice was shaking. "David, what is this $500 charge for a resort in California?" There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing. Finally, he said, "Mom, it is not a big deal. Chloe, She has been having a hard time. Her, her follower count plateaued. She needed something to look forward to. She said it was for content. The excuse was so flimsy, so insulting. But worse than that was the tone in his voice. It was not apologetic. It was resigned. And underneath that, I heard a hint of annoyance. Annoyance at me for asking. In that moment, the image of my son, my little boy, shimmered and broke apart. I saw a middle-aged man who was allowing his wife to use his elderly mother as a personal bank. I hung up the phone. I did not call my sister Eleanor for 2 days. I was too ashamed. When I finally did, I told her everything, the whole sordid timeline. She did not say, "I told you so." She was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "Norma, you are not their ATM. You are their mother. It is time to start acting like the smart, capable woman I know you are." It was the permission slip I did not know I needed. The next morning, I put on real clothes instead of my usual house robe. I drove to the public library. They have a technology tutor for seniors on Wednesdays. A very patient young man named Isaiah sat with me for an hour and showed me how to log into my bank's website securely, how to download my statements as PDF files, and how to use a simple spreadsheet program. I took notes on a little pad with a shaking hand. I felt like a spy in my own life. Back home, I made a pot of strong coffee and got to work. I downloaded 12 months of statements. I created a spreadsheet with columns for date, vendor amount, and a category. My categories were essentials, maybe essentials, and clearly not essentials. As I typed in each line, my sadness hardened into something else, something solid and determined. The total for the year took my breath away. $18,470. I printed out the summary page. The numbers did not lie. I needed legal advice, but I did not want a stranger. I called Frank's old friend Arthur Bernstein. He had done our wills. I went to his office, a cozy room that smelled of old books and leather. I showed him my spreadsheet. His kind face grew stern. "Norma," he said, "this is financial exploitation. It might not be criminal, but it is absolutely wrong." He advised me on my rights. Then he said, "Do you want to pursue legal action?" I thought about it. I thought about David in a courtroom. "No," I said, "but I want it to stop. I want them to know how serious this is." Arthur nodded. He drafted a simple, formal family loan agreement. It stated the total sum, outlined a no-interest repayment plan of $150 a month, and had a signature line for both David and Chloe. It was not a lawsuit. It was a fact. The next stop was a different bank, one on the other side of town. I opened a new checking and savings account. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly changed the direct deposit for my pension and Social Security. I moved the bulk of my savings. It felt like building a fortress around what was left of my security. The most painful step was emotional. I went to my jewelry box and took out Frank's wedding band. I had kept it polished all these years. I always thought I would give it to David on a big anniversary, or maybe when his first child was born. They do not have children. Chloe says it would ruin her figure. I held the cool, smooth gold in my palm. Frank's hands were so strong. I closed my fingers around it and put it back in the box, turning the little key. He would not have wanted his ring to go to a man who would let his wife treat his mother this way. Not yet. Maybe not ever. My plan was set. Cancel the card. Have the documents ready, the statements, the loan agreement, and a simple budget I made for them, based on David's salary. State my case calmly. Do not argue. Just present the facts. Let them decide what to do. The night before, I could not sleep. I went to the living room and looked at the portrait of Frank on the mantel. I spoke to him. I have to do this, Frank. I have to be strong. For me. Maybe even for him. For the man you raised him to be. The morning was clear and cool. I got up, made my tea chamomile for nerves, and placed the manila folder squarely in the center of the kitchen table. I had already called the bank and cancelled the card. The representative had been very kind and asked if I suspected fraud. I said, yes, in a way. I sat. I waited. I did not have to wait long. My phone rang at 10:07 in the morning. The screen lit up with Chloe's name and a picture of her making a silly face. Her voice was not silly. It was a sharp, panicked shriek that made me hold the phone away from my ear. Norma, your card was just declined at Sephora. I am here with Madison and Taylor. It is so embarrassing. What did you do? Did you report it stolen? I took a slow breath. My hand was steady. I cancelled it, Chloe. I said, my voice even. We need to talk. Please come over. And bring David. What? No. I need to. She started to argue, but I interrupted. This is not a discussion. Please come over. Now. I hung up. It was the first time I had ever hung up on someone. About 30 minutes later, I heard the aggressive roar of David's car engine, then the screech of tires in my driveway. 2 car doors slammed hard and fast. They burst through the kitchen door without knocking. Chloe was flushed, her perfectly styled hair slightly askew. She was still holding 2 large, glossy shopping bags. David was right behind her, his face a thundercloud of anger. Chloe threw her bags onto a chair and pointed a manicured finger at me. I cannot use your card anymore, she screamed, her voice cracking. What is wrong with you? Do you have any idea how humiliated I was? My friends were right there. David stepped forward, putting himself between me and Chloe. But he was not protecting me. He was confronting me. Mom, what is this about? He demanded, his voice loud and tense. You cannot just cut her off like that, without warning. We rely on that card for things. I looked at them, my son and his wife, standing there in my kitchen, radiating entitlement and outrage. I did not stand up. I placed my hands flat on the table on either side of the folder. Please, I said, gesturing to the empty chairs across from me. Sit down. They did not move. They stood there, a united wall of fury. So I opened the folder. I pulled out the first page, the summary of the spreadsheet, and slid it across the smooth tabletop toward them. David's eyes dropped to the paper. "This," I said, "is $18,470. That is what has been charged to my card in the last 12 months. The resort was the last straw, but this has been going on for a very long time." David's anger seemed to stutter. He leaned in slightly, his brow furrowing as he scanned the numbers, the vendor names. His face paled. Chloe snatched the paper off the table. Her eyes darted over it, not comprehending the totality, just seeing evidence. "You have been spying on us," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "Tracking our every move. This is insane. This is a violation." I ignored her. I kept my eyes on my son. "David," I said softly, "do you see it? Groceries at Fresh Market." I understood. The new tire when you had that blowout, of course. But this? I reached over and pointed to a line item dated a few months prior. $212 to Posh Pooch Petwear. "You do not have a dog, David." He blinked. He looked from the paper to me, his confusion genuine. Chloe jumped in her tone, defensive and sharp. "It was a gift. For my sister's poodle. It was her birthday." I did not look away from David. "It does not matter," I said, my voice gaining a firmer edge. "What matters is that this was my money, from my pension, from the savings Frank and I built over a lifetime of work. Money I need." I told them about the dental implant, the one I have postponed, because the $2,000 cost seemed insurmountable, while I was watching $800 a month fly out the door for your lifestyle. David's mouth opened then closed. He looked shattered. "Mom, I did not. I never added it up. The total," he stammered. Chloe cut him off, her voice scaling back up to a shout. "We are family. This is what family does. You have this big, empty house. You have your pension just sitting there. We are the ones struggling to build a life. We are young. You have had your turn. That was it." The veil ripped completely. I stood up. I am not tall, but I drew myself up to my full height. My heart was pounding, but my hands were still. "No," I said, and my voice was clear and loud in the quiet kitchen. "This is what exploitation does." I let the word hang there, ugly and true. I pulled the next document from the folder. This is a family loan agreement. It outlines a repayment plan for the $18,470. No interest, $150 a month. You can sign it today, or we can discuss it further with the lawyer who drafted it, Arthur Bernstein. I then slid the final paper forward. And this is a sample monthly budget. Based on David's salary, which you told me was $85,000 a year. It shows a line item for groceries, for gas, for your mortgage, for Chloe's phone bill. It shows that you can afford your life. You just cannot afford your life, plus mine. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of their world view cracking. Chloe was the first to break it. She started to cry. But these were not tears of remorse. They were hot, angry tears of someone whose game has been exposed. "How can you be so cruel?" she sobbed, her face contorted. "After everything I have done for you, the dinners, keeping you company. You would be all alone without us. David was not listening to her. He was staring at the loan agreement, his face ashen. The reality of it, the legal paper, the formal language was sinking in. You are making us sign a contract like we are strangers. His voice was hollow. I am protecting what is left of my financial security, I said, sitting back down, my energy spent, but my resolve firm. And I am in a way trying to protect you two from yourselves. What I was doing was not help. It was enabling. It was letting you believe that someone else would always fund your wants. David finally sank into one of the kitchen chairs. The fight drained out of his shoulders. He put his head in his hands. When he spoke, it was a muffled whisper into his palms. I am sorry, Mom. I am so sorry. Those words, frail and broken, were the first real, unmanipulated words I had heard from him in years. They hurt more than all the yelling. Chloe saw him crumbling. Her tears vanished, replaced by pure rage. Do not, you dare apologize to her, she shrieked. She is treating us like criminals. She is a bitter old woman who does not want to see us happy. She grabbed her shopping bags off the chair, the plastic rustling violently. I am leaving. David, are you coming? David did not look at her. He kept his head in his hands, then slowly lifted it to look at me. His eyes were red-rimmed. I need a minute, he said to her, his voice flat. Chloe stared at him, then at me, her expression one of utter betrayal. She let out a strangled sound, turned on her heel, and stormed out. The front door slammed so hard, the windows in the kitchen rattled. And then it was just us. A mother and a son in a quiet kitchen with a stack of paper between them. He did not speak for a long time. I did not either. I let him sit in the discomfort, in the ruin of his own choices. Finally, he reached for the pen lying on the table. He picked it up. He did not look at me. Where do I sign? He asked. David signed the agreement. He did not argue about the terms. He just scrawled his name on the line, his signature looking childish and weak. He did not sign for Chloe. He said he would talk to her, that he would make the payments himself if he had to. He promised the first $150 would come next month. We did not hug goodbye. There was too much broken glass between us for an embrace. He just nodded a stiff, awkward motion and walked out the door. The silence that settled over the house after he left was different from the loneliness I knew before. It was not empty. It was full of the echo of what had just happened. I felt a deep, aching grief. Grief for the son I thought I had raised. Grief for the easy Sunday dinners I knew were gone, probably forever. But underneath that grief, if I dug deep, I found a small, steady flame. It was the flame of self-respect. It was warm, and it was mine. In the weeks that followed, I used some of the money, now safely in my new account, to get the dental implant. It was not as scary as I thought. I joined a non-fiction book club at the library. I had long video calls with my sister Eleanor, where we talked about everything except David and Chloe. 1 month to the day after that morning at the kitchen table, I saw a deposit in my new checking account. $150. The memo line just said, "Bank transfer." No note, no apology. It was a transaction. It felt like both a victory and a profound sadness. The lesson I learned was not really about money. It was about the exorbitant cost of buying love, or the illusion of it. It was about learning that sometimes the strongest, most loving thing you can say is no. That boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are the fence around your own garden, so you can tend to your own flowers without someone else trampling them to pick what they want. I'm sitting on my porch as I tell you this. Frank's wedding band is still in my jewelry box, the key on my chain. I do not know if David will ever earn it. That is not up to me anymore. My peace is no longer tied to his choices. For the first time in years, I feel a calm that comes from knowing my own worth, not as a mother or a grandmother that never was, or a bank, just as Norma, and that perhaps is the only inheritance that is truly mine to give and to keep. If this story resonated with you, if you have ever felt the quiet strain of a relationship where the giving felt one-sided, I would love to hear from you. Could you ever imagine yourself in my shoes at that kitchen table? What would you have done? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. It helps others feel less alone. If you found strength in this story, please give this video a like. It tells me these truths are important to share. And if you want to be here for the next story about navigating life's difficult chapters with grace, please hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for listening and for being part of this community. Remember, it is never too late to rebuild your own foundation. Wishing you peace and strength on your own journey.